I'm going to guide you through 3 simple steps I used to go from this physique to this physique in just 6 months. And at the end, I have a 4th step that without it, all 3 steps we're going to talk about won't even work for you. So stick to the end. That's enough talking, let's jump right in. The first step you have to take is having a well-planned workout plan. There are 4 key things you have to consider for a good, well-planned workout plan. First, you need to have a good workout split. The key to finding your workout split, because it's different for everybody, is to try out different splits. Just like how you try on clothes before you buy them to make sure they fit you, you would try out different splits to make sure that these splits actually fit you. Some splits I recommend you try are push-pull legs, upper lower, full body, Arnold, and even bro split. Yes, I would recommend you do bro split. Think about it. Back in the old days when we didn't have all this scientific research, a lot of people did bro split. I'm pretty sure most people did bro split, and guess what? Most of those people made hella gains. Think Arnold, Jay Cutler, Dorian Yates, all these guys used bro split for a really long amount of time, and they made look at these guys now, they're legends. Another thing you can do if you're an intermediate lifter is try mixing push-pull legs and upper lower. Try make them into a 5-day split. Why should you do this as an intermediate? Because by now you should have good programming knowledge, so you're actually going to be able to get as much value as you could from using a push-pull upper lower split. If you're a beginner and you think you have good programming knowledge, go for it. It could be a fun challenge. But alright, now let's move on to the next point. For a good workout plan, you also have to consider training frequency. What is training frequency? Basically, it's how many times you train a muscle group per week. So what's the optimal range? Research suggests that training your muscles 2 to 3 times a week actually leads to the most muscle growth. Training each muscle group 2 to 3 times a week also has a few more benefits, such as well spread out volume, because if you worked out one day of the week, that's a lot of volume in one day, and most of that volume is going to go into junk volume, which we don't want that, guys. It doesn't help you make gains whatsoever. Another benefit is having an easier time programming rest days and rest time into your program. The final point I wanted to talk about for having a well-planned workout plan is having good exercise selection. You basically want to pick the exercises that feel good, offer a better stretch for the muscle, and have better overload potential. You could pick Bayesian curls over incline curls because they feel better for you. You could pick preacher curls over normal curls because they offer a lot more stretch. And then you could pick cross-body tricep extensions over tricep pushdowns because they offer a better overload potential. And if you didn't know, overload potential is how well you can progressively overload an exercise. Alright, and this wraps it up pretty much for step 1. Now we're ready to move on to the second step I used. Alright, now for the second step, you're gonna work on your nutrition. So you can do that by either cutting, bulking, or main gaining. I like to call that a lean bulk. If you're confused on what you should do at your weight, an easy way to tell if you want to bulk is if you're between 20% to 25% body fat. Usually people with 20 to 25% body fat look something like this. So if you look something like that, you're probably gonna want to cut. If you know you're close to 20% body fat and still can't decide whether you want to cut or not, let me help you out. If you look or close to looking to something like this, you are probably going to want to go ahead and start cutting. Hopefully that helps you make a better decision. But bro, I've had friends that look like this telling me they need to cut. No bro, you don't need to cut. You need to eat the whole fridge if you can. Please don't be like those guys. You don't actually need abs to like bulk. Okay, you can bulk without abs. Alright, now let's move on to figuring out whether you need to bulk or not. And a really easy way to tell if you need to bulk is if you can see your abs just a little, just like this. Another easy way to tell if you need to bulk is if you have 10 to 15% body fat, and usually people with 10 to 15% body fat look something like this. If you've been following so far, you'll notice that there is a range that I skipped, that range is 15 to 20% body fat, because this area is sort of a gray area. You could honestly go bulk or you could go cut. And it's pretty hard to tell whether you need to bulk or cut. But don't worry, I got you, bro. I got two solutions for you. The first solution, which is more time consuming, is you try and go through both a bulk and a cut. So I'd say start bulking first, and then if you don't like the way you're starting to look, then I'd recommend you cut. That's the first solution. The second solution, which works immediately, is what I'd call main gaining, but I like to call it lean bulking. I'm going to get to what that means shortly. Alright, now that we've gone over what you should do with your nutrition, now let's go over how you can bulk, cut, and lean bulk. Let's start with bulking. If you're on a bulk, you're typically eating at a calorie surplus, which is 500 to 800 calories above your maintenance. And a calorie surplus is usually how many calories you eat above your maintenance calorie in a day. So you're gonna wanna add 500 to 800 to your maintenance calories so you can go ahead and bulk. If you don't know what your maintenance calories are, a good way to find an estimate is to go through an online calculator. It'll ask you for your stuff like your age, your gender, your height, and your weight. I'll have one linked in the description. You can go check it out. I highly recommend you do, so you can figure out what your maintenance value calories are. Alright, now let's move on to cutting. When you're cutting, you're typically in a calorie deficit. This is the opposite of a calorie surplus. A calorie deficit is when you're eating below your maintenance calories. Typically, when you're cutting, you're gonna wanna go 300 to 500 calories below your maintenance calories. That's a lot of calories, I just said. When you're cutting, you're gonna wanna prioritize low-fat alternatives, stuff like low-fat yogurt, low-fat milk, low-fat cheese, and other low-fat dairy products. There's too many to name. Try and use less oil when you're cooking in a pan. I find that like those bottles with oil in them, that spray, those really help with that. Using protein powder also helps you so much when you're on a cut. First, because it lets you have an easier time hit your protein goals. And because if you were to get that protein from other protein sources, it comes with a lot of other nutrients and stuff. It would have way more calories, which is definitely not something you want when you're cutting. You should really be careful while you're cutting, because a lot of things can go wrong opposed to bulking. Because when you're bulking, you could honestly just eat whatever. You're just trying to eat as many calories as you want, so it doesn't matter if you stick to your plan that well or not. You just have to like stay close to it. However, if you're cutting, you're gonna have to really lock in, because not even an extra bite of food, not a snack either, because what we're talking about, a snack that's like 200 to 300 calories, and what you're eating 300 to 500 calories under your maintenance. So what do you think a chocolate bar that's 200 calories is gonna do to you? Oh, you also ate an extra banana today? 160 calories. Man, even an avocado is something like 200 calories. So yeah, you have to really be careful. Hopefully you're beginning to understand how hard you need to lock in for a cut. Alright, now let's talk about lean bulking. Lean bulking is different from bulking because, as opposed to bulking, your goal here is to build muscle and build as little fat as possible. When you're bulking, your goal is still to build muscle, but you're not really careful with how much fat you're gaining. Like you're trying to be careful, but you still go a little overboard. So how do you lean bulk? Remember our bulking range? It was 500 to 800. For lean bulk, you're gonna try and do something close to 300 to 500. This way, you can build as much muscle as you can with building the least possible amount of fat. This isn't much different for bulking, except you're gonna have to lock in a little more on your calories. Now that we've talked about how many calories you should eat, let's talk about macro ratio, or I like to call them macro pies. These stay the same whether you're cutting, bulking, or lean bulking. And basically, this is the macro ratio which your calories should come from. An optimal calorie pie should look something like this. 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per body weight. 20 to 30% of your calories should come from fat, and the rest should ideally be filled in with carbs. Don't worry too much about filling the rest in with carbs. If you can't fill the rest in with carbs, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Just as long as you're getting a lot of carbs in your day, because you really need those. And this pretty much covers it up for macro pies. And the last thing I want to talk about in nutrition is the supplements I took. The one supplement that really made a difference for me was creatine, and specifically creatine monohydrate. Creatine helps with muscle recovery, increases your strength, and makes you look bigger, bro. Isn't that sick? Who wouldn't want that? There's also a few more benefits to creatine, but we honestly only care about those 3 for muscle gains. So if you want to learn more about them, you can just search them up. But this pretty much wraps it up for our second step, and we can move on to the third and final step. For the third step, you're going to work on recovery. The 2 key things you need to focus on here are sleep and rest periods in between workouts. But let's start with sleep. You need at least 8 hours of good quality sleep to build and recover your muscles to the fullest. Otherwise, your muscles won't recover properly and you will be fatigued for your next workout. Not good. Improper recovery can also lead to making no progress at all. So if you've been stalled for the next 2 to 3 weeks, then that's probably why. So the next time you scroll reels at night, remember that you're robbing yourself of your gains. The next key thing I want to talk about is rest. What I mean by rest is how much time you're giving your muscles to rest before you exercise them again, and what you're doing in your rest days. So let's look at rest time first. You want to let your muscles rest at least 48 hours before working out again. An example of this would be working out your chest on Monday and then waiting till Wednesday to work out your chest again. This way your chest is all recovered and ready to work out again. So try to incorporate rest days and space out your muscle groups. That way you can make sure you're getting enough rest time between workouts. Alright, now let's look at what you're doing on your rest days. So they're called rest days for a reason. What you should be doing on a rest day is, well, resting. What I mean by resting is you shouldn't be fatiguing your muscles or exercising them. One thing you can do on a rest day though is you can go for a walk or a run, that's fine. Just don't do stuff like push-ups or anything that gets your muscle tired. And that pretty much wraps it up. Fourth step that we still have to talk about that honestly not a lot of people talk about when they're making videos like this. This fourth and final step being consistency in the gym. If you didn't know, this step is actually pretty crucial to building muscles in the gym. So an easy way to tell if you're consistent in the gym is if you're working out 5 days a week for at least 3 months now. If you've been doing that, I'd say you're pretty consistent. You have to actually show up to the gym and stick to your program to actually see gains. Otherwise, you're gonna be one of those skinny guys who say stuff like, "Oh, I've been going to the gym, but I haven't seen any progress yet, bro. It's my genetics, they're so bad, bro. I'm never gonna make any gains in my life." Kind of face emoji. Even if you don't have a good workout plan, actually, even if you just show up to the gym without a workout plan, or good workout nutrition, or good recovery, and you just show up to the gym consistently, you're gonna make more muscles than the guy who has the perfect workout plan, the perfect recovery, and the perfect nutrition, but doesn't show up to the gym that often. A person who's consistent in the gym will always make more gains than the guy with the best program, but doesn't stick to it that well. So hitting the gym right away is better than if you wait for a good program to actually start working out. Because here's the truth, you won't ever have a good workout program before you start hitting the gym. That comes later on. So now let me tell you a funny fact about my journey. I didn't start with lifting weights or trying to build a good workout program right away. Do you know what I did? Guess how I started. Do you know those fitness classes where middle-aged white guys or women go and they like start throwing punches in the air and stuff? Yeah, that's how I started. And I did that for a good 5 months before I even started considering with like weightlifting. If you saw me doing these classes, bro, you would not think my physique was gonna go anywhere. But what I did was better than staying at home and not going to the gym at all in the first place. So this is why you'll hear me say what I say in my outro. But with that, we've wrapped up everything in this video. If you've enjoyed or found this video a little bit helpful, consider sharing it to a friend. I'd really appreciate it. What I say in my outro. But with that, we've wrapped up everything in this video. If you've enjoyed or found this video a little bit helpful, consider sharing it to a friend. I'd really appreciate it. And find a way to hit the gym, even if it's hard. See ya.